puts out what's called the preliminary budget. That happens in January, February, March. Then he puts out what's called the executive budget, which is his proposal, and that's what came out last Friday. But then in June, sometime before June 30th, the council and the mayor reach an agreement and we vote to pass a budget.
In other words, before the summer, we'll have a better idea of where everybody's at.
Yeah.
I have twins, 4-year-old twins here in the daycare center. You probably met my son this morning and my daughter. And if they're not going to be in daycare, I'm not working. And if I'm not working, isn't that going to cost the mayor a lot more money in benefits?
Here's the irony of that. I mean, so if you didn't work and then you went on public assistance, you would have a right to daycare, and then we would have to give you a voucher, and it would cost more money than we're paying today. So yes, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And it's in the Orthodox community, obviously there's already a big savings to the city by the fact that the kids are in yeshivas and girls' schools, because obviously it would cost a lot more to the city to provide public schools for all those kids. So, and it's, I mean, on the one hand, that's a choice that the community makes. On the other hand, what it means is that the Frum community gets much less in resources. A third of the city budget is education. We got a $65 billion budget. About $20 billion of that goes for our public schools, and that's great. And of course, I'm a big supporter of public schools, but it does mean that on the biggest portion of the budget by far, the Orthodox community gets much less than its share. A little bit for transportation and a few other things, but still nowhere near the same as other communities. And so that was why it was so unfair when Priority 7 was cut, which was one little way the community got a little closer to some resources. And now this one, the cuts to Priority 5 would be again this year not so disproportionate. This cut's hitting everyone, so it's not necessarily hitting the Orthodox community unfairly like Priority 7 was, but still it's going to be thousands of families who would be in jeopardy. This center has 8 funded classrooms. 3 of those classrooms were cut a couple of years ago when they decided to stop having childcare for 5-year-olds. Now the state money is appropriate to pay for 5-year-olds. It's allowed, it's perfectly kosher to use public money to pay for 5-year-olds. There's not mandatory kindergarten education in New York City. It's not well known, but you don't have to you have to send your kid to 1st grade, but you don't have to send your kid to kindergarten. Of course you want to, it's a good idea, they need to get an education, but because they use that to say we're going to cut the 5-year-olds. Obviously in this community that was totally unhelpful. I mean, this was a great place to have your 5-year-old girls, and so you want to have them here. So it was really a bad cut, but that's what happened. And then the center said, well, you know what, that's fine. We'll shift those 3 classrooms to serving 3- and 4-year-olds. We need to serve the 5-year-olds, but we have a long waiting list. Just let us. And they basically said, no, too bad. You had 3 classrooms of 5-year-olds. Those 3 classrooms are cut. And so now each year for the last couple, the councils had to fight to restore those 3 classrooms, and we have to do that again this year and say, we got to put the money back for those 3 classrooms. Then they added a new set of cuts to classrooms this year. 6,000 kids around the city, and what they said is we won't cut a classroom from a small center where one classroom cut might close the center, because you have centers that have just 2 or 3 funded classrooms. They said we won't cut one from them because how could they keep their administrator and pay their other costs? We'll only cut classrooms from the larger centers. Well, if you had 8 and 3 weren't being cut, maybe that would be an okay argument and you could still get by on 7. But obviously if you'd already cut 3 and then you cut 1 more, now you make it impossible for the center to function. So that's one. Maybe that one will be restored with this $40 million. We still don't really know. They're still actually going to cut some classrooms even though they restored the money. That's this thing about where the 4-year-olds become 5-year-olds and they say those kids don't need it anymore. Now they're 5, so we're going to cut a 4-year-old classroom. We don't know about that. On the vouchers, what they've said is that they will cut the families who have had the vouchers the longest. And that could again work against the Orthodox community, because if you have a big family and you've had a voucher a long time from your first kid and you've passed it down from kid to kid, a bigger family is more likely to have had a voucher a long time than a small family if you've got your first kid or you only have 2 kids. So what we know is that a lot of those vouchers, the Priority 5 vouchers, are in the Orthodox community. Councilman Greenfield has the most of them. Councilman Levin in Williamsburg has a lot. My district right here has a lot. And so that's an unfair cut, and we are going to have to, and that's part of why we're fighting so hard against it.